pay attention to it.
And it doesn't go live on Facebook. If you post the YouTube link on Facebook, and you click on that post, then it'll pops up a YouTube browser window. But in LinkedIn, it plays live. So
now it says we're streaming live on YouTube.
Come again?
It says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
It is.
Awesome.
That's awesome, isn't it? It shows you on your end as well.
Yeah.
All right. So since we're live, we might as well start talking, but I will grab the link and take it to the socials so that
and tag me on it, and I will go ahead and like it as well.
I just tagged you on LinkedIn, and I'll tag Love and Relo on Facebook because I don't think I'm connected with you on Facebook.
Cool.
Love and Relo. So if you're amongst the people who are watching this on YouTube and you wonder, what are these blokes doing? What the hell are they talking about? And why is this not on topic yet? Because it's not at the hour. So chill, folks.
This is the preview right here.
It's the preview. You get a peek behind the curtain. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Every in the US, every great game has a nice big tailgate. So this is what we're giving people right now, I guess.
Did you bring the cooler?
I just have my water. That's all. It's a big water though.
All right. I am still posting our stuff.
Right.
Hang on. All right. I got to tag you more, I guess. Yeah, there's got to be a better solution to this.
Well, there's probably a bot out there that could do all this for us.
Yeah.
All this tagging, reposting.
Or Janet, maybe. Everybody needs a Janet.
I'm going to get her a shirt that says everybody needs a Janet, because you're like the fifth guest that was on my show that said, I need to get a Janet. And I'm like, you say you don't lay your hands on my Janet.
No, I won't. I certainly won't. I just tagged you on Twitter as well. So Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think this should do it.
There we go. I'll see if
we're
get that on.
About 30 seconds away from launch. So those pre-gamers who are enjoying the tailgate,
there you go.
Hide your beer bottles because we're going live now. It's a different game soon. All right. I also posted the link on your LinkedIn post in the comments. So I think now we covered all the bases, I would argue.
I'm ready for it. Go ahead.
All right. So Janet is one of your coworkers, I'm suspecting?
No, she works at another company, actually another moving company. You could look at us as competitors. But we're not. And she's just wonderful. She just took an interest in what I was doing, and we have a deep kind of almost spiritual connection, and we just have the same vision, and we're just like-minded. And she wanted to help me however she could, and I said, well, here's what you can help me with, and I took a leap of faith, and I did a trust fall, and she caught me, and here we are.
Love it. That's yeah. See, and this is, and we're at the hour, so we might as well do a proper introduction. So welcome everybody to the Culture Talk on this Tuesday, April 21st, right? Which would fall right in line with my scheduling challenges. So I've been a grown-up for a while, and I still don't know how to use a calendar across time zones and with different technology. Maybe it's me showing my age. So it is April 21st, and this is the Culture Talk, and with me today is Ben Cross. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me, Christian. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to do this. This is my first podcast that I've actually had the pleasure of being a guest on, so I'm like extremely excited about being on the other side of the table right now.
Really, your first time? This is interesting. I get to be the one. All right, awesome.
You are. I'll remember you always.
No, it's not going to be that kind of talk. I hope. Well, we'll see where this goes. So, why did I ask Ben to come on? For multiple reasons. I've been enjoying Ben's live sessions on LinkedIn and other social medias for a while, because it is rare that, at least from my perspective, it is rare that people in the relocation and mobility industry are taking an active non-offensively branded approach to content creation. So Ben has been out there. If you haven't followed him yet, find him on LinkedIn, find him on all the other socials, and we'll make sure to post the links to your profiles in the comment box or somehow. We'll figure out how to do this.
Awesome.
However, I think it's critical to recognize that in your industry, I think you're a unicorn in terms of presenting yourself in a way that is not, hey, hire us and we'll move your stuff and we're better than the others. So you take a what I would call a collaborative approach, or one of conversational collaborative approach, and this is very much in line with how I approach my business. And I've always been a huge fan of engaging with the marketplace. And sure, we might be competitors here and there, or we might bid on the same project or on parts of the same project at a certain point in time. Or there'll be other opportunities where we might work together on fulfilling a project or fulfilling a deal and on some end. And this is true for my industry, for cultural training coaching, for relocation support, like expatriate support. And I would argue this is also true in your industry. However, I don't see a lot of people taking your approach to it. So tell us why you chose to do that, and how good has that worked? How well has that worked for you so far?
Well, I'm honored, first of all, by everything you said. I appreciate it. It means the world to me. And it rings true to me, which is validating because that's what I try to do every day. Um, the reason I named my show Love and Reload is because I wanted to lead with the love, and I didn't want to lead with my company name, right? I think it's so cringy when we're out there, at least in my business, I'm in the moving business, right? So I walk into a client, I try to convince them that my blue truck is better than the next guy's blue truck, is better than the next guy's yellow truck. And then they just want to vomit because they're like, really, I've heard this from the 20 guys before you, what makes you different? And somebody told me that it was me, that I'm the one that makes my company different. And I'm like, interesting, right? So we hide behind these big brands of these companies that we work for. But at the end of the day, people buy from you, people buy from people, because people are what make us feel special. People are who understands us. And I believe that people's personal brands are far greater than the brands of the companies that they work for. And I was just talking to Janet, who's been kind enough to be my intern. I was joking with her. She's my 61-year-old intern producer. I call her an intern not out of disrespect, but just because I can't pay her. So she's been volunteering, and we've been mentoring one another, and we have this amazing relationship. But she works with me on this project out of the kindness of her heart, because she believes in the mission. And the mission really is to just help people be their best selves. And in doing so, hopefully we can change people, and hopefully people can change the world. And that's kind of what I'm going with. I work for a company today, and I'm fortunate enough to still be drawing a paycheck in this pandemic right now. But I might work for a different company in 5 years. And that doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I hope to still be this person who you see here, and maybe even a better version. So it's just about putting the people first and the stories first, and the brands and the other things like that. You may choose to do business with, you may not, but nobody wants to watch a 1-hour commercial. But I think they would watch a 1-hour life story from someone that might profoundly, share something that might profoundly change them, or connect with them, or make them feel more human in some way. So that's what we try to do.
So it's showing the human side, basically showing the human side of a business that can be quite transactional. That can be, hey, here's a bunch of boxes. I needed to go from A to B. You have the blue truck. Bring people to load it, drive it, and unload it. Thank you very much.
People that talk about their trucks are in my business, I believe, are losing. People don't care about trucks. They care about the people they're working with. Do I trust you? Do I like you? Do I think that you understand what I'm trying to do? Do you understand that I'm moving my entire family across the world, and all the hopes and concerns and fears and dreams that I have wrapped up in that transaction? And those are the brands that are connecting with people. So anyway, trucks don't sell moves, people do. So thank you, Christian.
Nice. Now, How much are you moving right now? I mean, we're
We're down.
in.
That's a great question. People ask me that like every day, and unfortunately, the answer hasn't changed. I've literally booked the same amount of moves for the last 4 weeks, which is good. The number's not zero, but it's about 75% less than it would normally be right now. So we are down about, depending on different lines of business. We have residential, we have government, and we have corporate moves, relocations. But depending on the vertical, we're anywhere from 60% to 90% down. So I would say roughly 75% down for the past month, currently. And I think that trend's going to continue for a couple more months. I do think we're gonna come outside here in a might be a month, it might be 2 months. The military of the United States Department of Defense, the largest customer of moving in the world, just extended the stop movement order until June 30th. And they kind of dictate a lot of what goes on in the industry. So yeah, in the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to emerge. But I do think that we're going to take a haircut, as an industry of probably 20% going forward after we come out of it. And
Mm.
then so the first half of the year might be down 60, 70%, and the second half might be down 20. But it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a real challenge, Christian.
So, haircut. I
Yeah.
don't want to. I don't want to be. I don't want to be funny about this. A, I need one badly, and B, I live in a state that has just announced. I live in Georgia, and our governor has announced that starting Friday, barbershops and other cosmetic stuff will reopen. So some states are taking action in reopening certain industry verticals. And I'm not going to share an opinion what I think about these steps. What I would like to know is, from your perspective, if the industry, if your industry, if my industry, if many industry verticals are getting a haircut during this time, what can we do from your experience? What can industry representatives do to prepare for the time after? How can we position ourselves? How can we jockey for the first seat in the barber's chair? Because haircut, yes, but then we got to run again, right?
Yeah. So I think you stay ready, and I think that fortunately, fortunately, we've seen programs like the Paycheck Protection Program that have been rolled out, that have been, rolled out there to become a bridge in order to keep employees and infrastructure in place. Because we're going to go from basically being closed, whether we're open for business as essential like we are, or not open. I mean, 20% or 0% of your normal business, I mean, you're effectively pretty closed, right? So without government assistance, we would not be able to remain open right now. And so you stay ready, you keep your critical amount of workforce at the ready. You try to communicate with your clientele as much as possible, and in turn hope that they communicate with you. And what that means is, by keeping them abreast of what you're doing, you hopefully keep them engaged. So I've been calling a lot of my clients and just asking what they see, and then in turn sharing what I've been seeing and having these dialogues. And out of it have actually come orders and actually come some business.
Mm.
And what I've been telling them is, when this thing turns on, there's going to be a rush for the first chair at the barbershop, right? Or for the first truck on the block, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to want the first truck out of town. And it's important to get me those moves and those initiations as soon as possible. And even if dates change and circumstances change, I can at least say, Sally was first in line,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
get in line, and that'll give me an idea, and I can staff for that and plan for that. And then the third thing I think is, is preparing for whenever this is lifted, and I don't know when that's going to be. It could be next week if you're a barbershop. It could be, July 1st if you're a moving company. Whenever we get back to a normal cadence, we're going to have to be going from working 20 to 30 hours a week to working 60 hours a week, and starting to message your workforce so that they are prepared for that. So those are kind of tactical things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think strategically, and I don't know if this is where you're going with this, but I think strategically is a different cap we have to wear, right? To say, okay, every major crisis like this, whether it's '08, with the financial downturn, or if it's 9/11, or if it's the dot-com bubble, or if it's, 1987 stock market crash. These change our society and change the course of our society and change the context of our generations. And I think it's important to learn and to shift your strategy with the new learnings that come out of it, right? And so here we are doing a Zoom meeting, right? And broadcasting this live. I mean, who would have thought 3 years, 5 years ago that you and I would both have a video talk show, right? And this would be a key part of our communication strategy and our marketing strategy and everything. So it's like, so how do we see where the puck is going, or see where the ball is going and get there, And we're going to have to incorporate. So in my case, we're doing a lot of virtual surveys, we're doing a lot of video surveys in the moving industry. We're allowing people to book those surveys online, to do them virtually like we're doing now, and then to be able to book a move without ever having met a customer. You could say we're, as an industry, behind in that, but we would say it's moves are complicated things, and we need to see people in person. So this is a big deal for us. We're seeing this in real estate as well. You're seeing title, and you're seeing notaries being able to sign things virtually. You're seeing all sorts of things happening virtually in real estate transactions that also trigger mobility events and allow people to move to other countries. So you have to kind of understand what these trends are, and what it means for industry, and I think strategically build for that future.
What you said about who would have thunk 3-5 years ago that we would be doing a live video chat here. I read something I don't remember, was it today, was it yesterday? It started to become a blur, to be honest with you. And what you said earlier about telling your staff that we're going to go from 20 hours a week to 60. I'm a lean, mean organization, so we work with contractors on a project by project basis. So my hours have not been affected. It actually feels like I'm putting in more hours than I have been doing before all this. But that may just be perception, which can be misleading. But the perception is that I don't remember when I read the headline that I was going to share. It said something like, after all this is leveled out, I'm not saying after we're back to normal, because none of us know whether it will be a back to the old normal. It will be a back to some sort of normal, whatever that will look like. And it said that those organizations, those companies who have not managed to implement a smart process for remote work in their teams, that have not been able to digitalize their offering or parts of their offering in a certain way, those will be the companies that may not only get a haircut, they may also get their feet cut off. Mm-hmm. And that those companies who are successful in virtualizing and digitalizing their business will be the ones dominating the next decade. Now, that may be a bit of a crass statement. However, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I don't know what that's like in the mobility industry, but I've seen this happening in the coaching and training industry, especially when it comes to cultural training. I am a boutique shop, right? So our company is not among the top training firms in terms of volume. I would argue we're among the top organizations in terms of quality and content, but we're not doing the volume that the big boxes do. Sure. And it is those, and in our industry, it's fairly common, at least in the decade that I've been playing in the sandbox, it's fairly common that the big training firms often shop out their training needs to independents or boutique companies like ours, especially if they don't have trainers for that specific need or for that geographic need, then they come knocking at our door. And several of the big training firms, I'm not going to name any of them, I'm going to protect their identity, but those of you watching, you know that I'm talking about you.
You're so kind. You're protecting the identity of your monolithic competitors. That's so kind of you.
Why shouldn't I? Because who knows? Because matter of fact, is we're still collaborating. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying this with ruthless compassion. I'm being ruthless about calling you out on your
Mm-hmm.
BS,
Yeah.
but I'm also compassionate and understanding your struggle. And the struggle is many of the big training firms up until 4 weeks ago had no plan in place to deliver cultural training and coaching virtually. Zero
That's
zilch.
that's
Yeah,
wild to me as just an observer in this space, and it's probably as wild for me to hear that from you as it is wild for you to hear from me that you couldn't book a move online without somebody coming to your home, until this pandemic happened.
hmm,
So, I mean, I shouldn't say you couldn't. You could, but not from the big known players, right?
right,
Not from the leaders in the industry, right?
right.
So I find that fun. I mean, you go to my office right now, and we'll just be totally open kimono here, right? You go to my office right now, and coordinators are sitting there with stacks of manila envelope or stacks of manila folders, right, with customers in them, right? They have duplicates and triplicates and carbon copies from inventories for moves. I think we have at least one, maybe two typewriters in our office, word processors that
Typewriters.
actually hit the page, because when you have duplicate and triplicate stuff, you want to type on it. What do?
Oh,
You put it in the typewriter and go.
tell me the brand of the typewriter. It's not a Corona, is it?
I don't know, but it's about this wide. It's one of those. It's a word processor, but it still
Oh,
has the
okay.
same action. And to me, and we have systems that we use that are legacy systems from other partners that require it, that are green screens, that are DOS based green screen systems. And so and we are an excellent moving company. We do a great job. We have a great reputation. We do business with some of the biggest clients in the world. But I'm just saying, this is what a lot of these leading companies are doing right now. And so, to your point about haircuts and feet cuts, right? This is going to be an interesting time, because this may favor the more nimble. This may favor the more
Mm,
agile,
mm.
without some of the overhead, or with systems that can adapt, or with systems that can take APIs and EDIs and interface with other systems. Because I'll tell you what, that DOS green screen's not interfacing with something, right? My duplicate and triplicate carbon copy process is not interfacing. So, I think it's it's an interesting time indeed.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that even though you've been experiencing a decrease in volume, that you're still doing well. I think your state of the union is probably very similar to many of us out there. And I think it's important to let the market know that we are still in business. And it's
Mm-hmm.
with both of our industries, I think it's we're not seen by the general public. We're not seen as a quote unquote essential service, even though we might be, depending on who you ask.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important I like the phrase open kimono. I like to show that there is still something there, right? We're still working. And matter of fact, I have stuff, virtual training lined up for the next couple of weeks, and it's happening across the globe. So it's across time zones. It is,
Yeah.
work is still happening, right?
And I want to touch on that too, because you said something about essential and non-essential, right? And we're going through this time period, right? And we look at the list and we're like, am I essential or am I non-essential? Did I make the
Mm,
cut or not make the cut? And I was talking to a real estate broker last week, and he's communicating to his clients, right? He's in the relocation space, right? And so he's communicating to his large enterprise clients, and he's giving a list of all the services in the relocation transaction process, right? And it's everybody from the mortgage provider, the mover, the real estate broker, the inspector, the title company, the everybody that's involved in the real estate portion of the relocation transaction. And everybody was essential businesses except for real estate, and he listed non-essential. And I said, listen, friend, when I read this, it tells me that you are closed. And you are not closed. You may not be able to report to your brick and mortar storefront, but you are not closed. Just like if I call you, Christian, and I say, I need cultural training, you say, no problem.
mhm,
Here, let's do it.
right.
Now, can I come into your office and can we sit down and sign a contract, or can we sit down and shake hands over, a whiteboard session? No. but we can do things that mimic that. So I
Right.
think it's important to say the government can't close your business. They can close your storefront.
Yep.
They can prohibit you from going into people's homes, but they can't close your business. Only you can close your business. So I think it's important for entrepreneurs and business people out there, service providers, customer service organizations, whatever. If you can find a digital way, if you can digitize, to Christian's point, if you can digitize your business, no one can close you. So
True.
I think we should remember that. Take heart in that. It's really up to us.
And if I think if I'm still looking for the silver lining in all this, and there is, I think
Mm-hmm.
one of them is that some industries, including ours, are somewhat forced or nudged towards that direction. Okay, now you cannot, if you've been an employer who said, we used to say up until a couple of weeks ago, I need your warm body behind a desk, filling a seat, looking at a screen. Otherwise,
Right.
you're not doing the work that we hired you for, and you won't
Right.
get paid. There is, and now you're recognizing, hey, you're working from home, and work is still getting done, and I don't see you. You don't see me, at least not in the same room. So you have no more reason to ignore your employees' request to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
We both know there have been, or there are quite a few organizations out there who restricted that and said, no, we don't like that, that you're just dodging work, you're trying to do something else, you're not really working, you're trying to be in your sweatpants at home and slacking off on the couch and Netflixing while you pretend on doing work.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're still delivering, and this is now a results metric rather than an expectation metric.
One, it's
So
an output versus input metric,
thank
right?
you.
It's
That's the
like,
right
let's look
term.
at what this employee has produced, not what they've consumed. Let's look at what the output is and not manage the input, you know. And I think great leaders understand to manage by output and not by input. It's not about Susie's 40 hours a week. It's about Susie's $100,000 in contribution and revenue.
Sure.
And I think that's where the wisdom is. And I think that's what empowers Susie to think smarter, not harder, right? To work smarter, not harder. And I think we all want people that work smart. You know, I mean, I don't think companies are not in the business of working harder. We're in the business of driving efficiencies and doing more with less. But yet we manage our employee workforce to do more, and we don't actually manage them to produce more. We manage them to do more in a lot of cases. Now that's evolving, but I'll admit, you know, I work in a culture which is very much we expect you in the office. You know, we expect you in the office 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and you know all that stuff. And because if you go home, you're going to be you know distracted or not really working or whatever. But I would say, and I've had this conversation with business leaders, people waste time at work all the time. I don't need to be in my sweatpants watching, you know, the third season of Ozark, which is tremendous, by the way.
Oh, no
You
spoilers,
know,
please. I haven't
to,
started
to
yet.
waste your time, Mr. and Mrs. Employer. I could be at your office doing NCAA March Madness bracketology. I could be chatting with Susie at the water cooler, trying to get her phone number, take her out to dinner. I could be sending chain mails around the office all day long. I could be, you know, in the bathroom for 45 minutes. You know, I could be playing Toon Blast at my desk. Nobody knows. So, I mean, here's the thing: when you create an adversarial relationship with your employees, where you tell them, but through your actions, I don't trust you,
Oh,
then
right.
they're going to tell you back with their actions, I don't trust you either. And then we're going to
Hmm.
play this cat and mouse game of, I'm going to do as little as possible, and you're going to try to catch me. And it's Tom
Hmm.
and Jerry. Okay. And at the end of the day, as employers who have to be thinking, as management who needs to be thinking strategically, the last thing we need to be doing is chasing Jerry all over the kitchen, trying to find him, you know, eating the cheese. We have to be thinking strategically, and we have to trust our people to act tactically in our best interests.
I love this point, and I'm fully in agreement with you. And here's what I think might be a challenge for leadership right now. A is um, to find that trust within themselves that they can pour out to their employee base. And I think it was, I don't know whose consultancy website I stumbled upon. It may have been Josh Bersin. If you don't know Josh Bersin, joshbersin.com, check it out, folks. I think he said the CEO now is the chief empathy officer in this Corona situations. As a senior leader, you need to be empathetic with your employee base, because we're all getting haircuts and we're all getting through rough times.
Mhm.
So it's not going to help you maintain your key talent by being a hard ass. So yes, you got to find your empathy for the hardship that's going on. Now, how do you transition as a trustful and trust giving leader from crisis mode, as we hopefully we'll get out of crisis? I don't know when, but hopefully soon. Couldn't come sooner. I believe it would be nice tomorrow. No, but in any way, so
Yeah.
how do you, as a senior leader, as a CEO, as somebody who calls the shot, or whatever you call yourself in your organization or what people refer to you, how do you remain empathetic and trust giving and still find a new way to be to hold your team accountable? Because if your MO used to be, okay, we need you to come to the office and we need to see you in order to control your performance. So if you found yourself to recognize, now we're changing this and it seems to work, so what is our new accountability measure? How do we make sure that people deliver? And is it, sure, Susie who produces 100K, but some people work in roles that are not bottom line, uh,
They're
contributing to the
harder
bottom
to
line.
quantify, right?
Right.
They're
So,
harder to quantify. Yeah.
so how do you maintain your empathy? How do you keep your, as we call it in our field, ICE-Q? And we can certainly talk about this later. But how can you be emotionally intelligent as a leader and still hold you folks accountable in this new way of work? Right. This is going to
Well,
be exciting
and
to see.
in this new era, at least in the current times that we're in, there's not going to be production. There's not going to be a ton of sales. So Susie could be fully engaged, doing all the right things, and you're still not going to see output because there's
Hmm.
no business right now.
Right. Right.
Okay. I told my boss I had a great week last week, and I did 25% of what I normally would have done, and he said, "Good job." And thankfully he did, because there was a real opportunity there for him to lose my engagement. And so
Hmm.
the answer to your question is, you say chief empathy officer. Well, I think they're also here's another E for you, chief engagement officer. And I
Hmm.
think that the way that you manage it is you look at communication. So when I go through the office and I see people are collaborating and people are talking and people are actively thinking about the problems of the business and working on solutions, that to me is an extremely healthy ecosystem. It's when people
Hmm.
aren't talking, it's when their head is down, when they say, not my job, this is my job, you do your own job. Don't, don't tell me what to do. And I'm not taking responsibility for helping you either, because I got my own problems over here. That's a bad thing. What'll happen in crises is people get really quiet. There's a tendency for us to kind of hunker down, not talk to one another. If I say something, maybe I get clipped, right? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't want to, I don't even want them. Oh, they're going to go through furloughs right now. They're going to go down the list. I don't even want them to think about me. Is there a way to be less conspicuous right now? That's what I want to be. There's a way, there's a turtle, like a turtle in the shell or an ostrich in the sand or whatever, where we hide. We go into the covers, right? Because there's a big scary monster called COVID-19 in our closet, right? And so that's the tendency. So the leader has to set the tone by being out front with engagement and hosting meetings, right? We always talk about what a time suck meetings are. Well, guess what? Nothing else is sucking your time. So let's meet. Okay. Let's kumbaya around the conference call. Let's talk. Let's share ideas. Let's rally around this. Let's get creative. Right. One of the best things that I did, I was worried about my job. I was worried about my job for about a week and a half going into this. Right. One of the best things I did is I went into the office um, and I talked to our CEO for 45 minutes, hour. I was going in for something unrelated. I need a new phone and a check or whatever. And I popped in, I just gave a knock, hey, how's it going? Oh, what are you doing here? Well, I'm picking up this, picking up that, but I haven't seen you in a while. I missed you. It's been a few weeks, how's it going? And we just had a level set. We just
Hmm.
talked. He told me what he was doing. He filed the PPP. He got, he did some things on his end that made me feel better. Okay, he's actively working at making sure we're secure. And I shared with him some of the things I was working on. And he said, gosh, I'd really like to know what your clients are thinking. And I said, well, you know what? Then I'll call all my clients. and I'll find out what they're thinking, and I'll report back. I'm actually going to type that report up for them today. And I had some very meaningful conversations, which also sparked some more business. But that gave me a sense of security because we had a way forward. I knew what he
Mm.
was doing. He knew what I was doing. We were working as a team. He didn't have to wonder if I was bilking him and watching Netflix on the clock. And I didn't have to wonder if he wasn't financially secure enough to make it through this thing.
Right.
And that to me was the most engaging point of this. And that changed my day-to-day philosophy on COVID-19 from every day feeling like, is this the day that I get an email saying I'm out of work,
Mhm.
to I think we got this. I think we can do this. And so it's about engagement.
So obviously, I don't want to pry too much, but how
Yeah, go for it.
how long? Yeah, let's just go for it, because I've been asking myself this question, and not for only my own business, but for everybody out there in my immediate neighborhood. How long? How long do we last? How long can we keep going like this?
Yeah.
Because the woman across the street, she's out of a job here, and I don't know how long she's going to pay her bills. And the guys that went to the gun store to get more ammunition, I was like, what are you preparing for? So as forgive me, I'm an immigrant to this country and U.S. gun culture and all. I'm still on my tippy toes when I hear gun talk.
Sure.
So how long till the levee breaks?
Mm-hmm. Right. And then that lady that doesn't have a job for 6 months and that guy that has a bunch of guns get together and go figure out you got, 10 loaves of bread and a bunch of water. And I don't even know. Right. Like how, till it gets like, the Walking Dead out there. I think the PPP, I want to say, was for a 2.5 month stretch, to support you for 2.5 month stretch. And I think that is a nice, fair time frame. And I want to say it came out, let's say it came out like April 1st or something like that. So that carries us through April, May, halfway into June. You're going to see that your barbershops and your other places are going to be open and things are going to be resuming. Our economy is not going to be as strong as the way people say, well, how long until it gets back to where it was? Oh, you mean to 10,000 points over the record? I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to get back to there. I mean, maybe it will in a couple years, but it's not going to snap back to the rip roaring best economy, 12 years straight incline, that we had ever seen. I mean, that's folly to me. But where does it get back to a reasonable number where we're clicking along and we have some stability and so on? I think a few months from mid-March. So I think mid-June, June 1 to June 30 in that range is my opinion on it. You're already seeing a lot of pressure from groups, pressuring the federal government, who's in turn pressuring the governors. My only thing is, don't be premature. Don't reset the clock, and all of a sudden we have all these brand new COVID cases and COVID bumps, and we are threatening to overrun our healthcare system again. So as long as we can do it in a way where we don't risk. I mean, there's so much we don't know right now, and this is what scares me. Again, going back to what makes me, engaged at work, is having that conversation and knowing. What makes me fearful as a citizen is not knowing what percentage are asymptomatic. Is it 20%? Is it 30%? Fauci puts 50% as the high mark. There's 60% that were asymptomatic on the Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier, but they just tested 60%. They tested 100% of people tested positive at a homeless shelter in Boston, that none of which were showing symptoms. So the not knowing the number of people that are asymptomatic in this country that could be carrying the disease and transmitting the disease is very fearful for me. So as long as we have enough tests out there to test everybody to know what we're really dealing with, then we can go knowing. I think that's 3 months from now, 4 months from now. And then we're back where we need to be. And I think we avoid this apocalyptic, everybody grabs their gun and fights over loaves of bread in the street, thing. And I think things are okay. But as far as how long can we last as the company, somebody I was interviewing somebody on my podcast, and she quoted a Warren Buffett. She quoted a Warren Buffett quote, and I'm quoting someone who quoted someone, so this is probably wrong, but it goes something like, when the tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked.
Hmm.
And she said, and some people are out there swimming naked. You know, they're
Hmm.
over levered in their business. They don't have enough cash in the bank. They don't, you know, they've been skating by on thin margins, or they've been so bullish and investing in this crazy economy that they don't have enough resources and reserves. You know, so
Hmm.
so there are going to be companies that are going to be found to be swimming naked out there who are not going to make it through this. Um, and so I guess it's a company by company
Yep.
basis to see.
And I think the response that we're seeing here in the United States is significantly different than it is in other countries. And I was asked, I don't know, 4 5 weeks ago by an organization that originated in Australia, so also an Anglo-Saxon culture, English-speaking culture,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked, "Hey, we're publishing a Corona special magazine, and the organization is called Workplace Mental Health Institute from Sydney." And they said, would you be willing to write a piece about how culture may or may not affect how a society responds to a pandemic situation? And I did my research on that. Obviously, I wrote that piece, and I did some research, and it was, I think there were three macro trends coming from that, and one is the lock it down now with all the means necessary, more as you would expect from more authoritarian regimes. However,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just authoritarian regimes, it was cultures that are very much group oriented and somewhat hierarchical. So you saw that in China, and yet you also saw that in Taiwan and in South Korea,
South Korea,
both
yeah.
both republics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both with freely elected governments that really locked down and flattened the curve faster than anyone else. Then you saw the more lenient piecemeal approach, the, oh well, we'll respond to it as we cross the next bridge, and that was prevalent in most of continental Europe.
Italy.
So
I look
they,
at Italy or France,
Italy, France, Germany,
mm-hmm.
Spain, Switzerland,
UK, even
Austria.
even
Yeah,
the
yeah.
UK.
The
I mean, their
UK,
pubs were open late. You know.
yeah, and there still are. So
Mm-hmm.
I would place the UK in the same basket as most of the other Anglo cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So most Anglo cultures are like, no, we are staunchly independent, and you, dear government, are not telling me what to do, and screw you. And also in some populist now there, for the longest time there has been this, oh no, it's just a flu from China. So it ain't big of a deal yet to call out big measures. Case in point, the US or Brazil, and also the UK for the longest
Yeah,
time,
UK.
until the
Yep.
prime minister was hospitalized. So we've seen these three approaches, right? The lock it down with all the means, and the piecemeal, well, let's tighten up the screws as we need it, and then the very lenient, highly independent, and we don't give a shit thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the results are in, right? So the results are in the way that maybe with our super lenient hands-off way, and let this play out and see how the market responds to it, and maybe if need be we might react, that may not have the best way, right? So is that the lesson, that our independent civil liberties, individual freedom societies are wrong? I don't think so. I don't think that's what it means. I think that many of our Western societies have become a bit complacent in the way we adhere to our own rules and enforce our own rules. And it has become a bit of a, oh, well, let's wait this out. The last tornado warning wasn't and it didn't hit me. And yeah, sure, there was a hurricane, but well, what else? FEMA took care of it somehow, so it didn't affect me, kind of thing.
Right.
Let me just go to community and lock the door. And that's a solution, or that's an approach that didn't serve the United States well, as we can see now.
Well, and
So
I think we were also somewhere in the middle. You know, I think it's interesting. I like how you're comparing the approaches by culture, and I think it's really fascinating. I agree with you on the Asia thing. I agree with you on the continental Europe thing. I think we fall somewhere in the middle. I mean, we were not as command and control as South Korea, and we
hmm,
were not as effective at flattening the curve.
Right.
We were quicker to do it than I think Italy and the UK. Um, and and I think I don't know, gosh, I don't know if I was gonna say seeing better results. I don't know if that's true. I mean, we have so many cases here, and I don't know statistically, what percentage like per capita and everything. I don't know if we're doing better or worse.
And I think it's too soon to call. And I'm certainly no expert on epidemiology. I think
Hmm.
it's we're maybe entering the second quarter of this game. So who knows how this is going to play out. So I'm not going to be the sayer or the Ray praiser.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. I think what's interesting is how societies are accepting a new normal, how they approach the new situation. And you said earlier about that employees or people in your environment are being fearful of the situation, the very monster in the closet. Um, and this is something that I find often with our clients, that the people that go through our training programs are often people who are sent into a new environment and
Hmm.
are, I don't want to say fearful, but usually rather apprehensive about what this is going to change for them personally, for their spouses, for their families. And tell them a line that isn't mine, but that I like a lot is fear is a liar. It is fear is false evidence appearing real. You are anticipating pain, but you can't read into the future. You're dealing with the now, right?
Right.
So whatever may or may not happen in the future is something that you make up here in the 6 inches between your ears.
Hmm.
And is that really what's going to happen? Who knows? You don't know. I don't know. So how about you give your future projection a little less and worry about what is within your realm of control now, right? And this
Right.
this is this is a constant practice for myself as well. So am I going to be glued to the screen and watching the 24/7 news entertainment channels and allowing that to influence my mindset, or am I in charge of what is? Can I protect myself? Can I protect my family from exposure and deal with the situation at hand and make the best of the situation? Sure, it's a haircut. It is less than it used to be. However, there is an environment that every one of us can control, right? It's not that, the government this or my neighbors that and the school system this and PPP that.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
what's
you're
within our
right.
control.
Yeah, there's always an element that we can control, and I think that that's key. And it's interesting as you talk about dealing with your clients, right? And you get you get people that the most adoption. It sounds like when people are going into a dramatically different culture, like for instance, I would be more apt to use your services if me and my family relocated to China than if me and my family relocated to Canada,
Mm,
right? I'd be
right.
scared. If I was going to China, me and my wife would probably be scared to death. Like, how are we going to communicate? Where are we going to eat? Where are we going to live? Is it going to even compare to what we live now? I mean, that's a very fearful jump for me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're also dealing with people because, at least in the relocation space, when they're expats who are relocating to another country, they're oftentimes pretty accomplished professionals, right? Who are probably used to, controlling things and, controlling their future and their career. And they have autonomy and they have a team in their workplace that they kind of that maybe roll up to them, and they have power and they influence. And they're going into it's like being a cool kid at one school and you get transferred to another school, and like in the south or something, or in the north, and totally different, and nobody knows who you are, and you got to like kind of like reprove yourself, and you don't even speak the language of the lingo. And I mean, that's a whole lot of fears, to your point, right, that people probably manifest and freak them out.
Yep.
So I can imagine how difficult. I mean, is there almost like a pattern that you've recognized? I want to ask you this question. Is there like a pattern that you recognize when dealing with these expats that are kind of entering into your program, where like a psychology evolution that happens with them when they come in? Maybe they think they know what they're getting into. Maybe they don't. Like, what is that psychological like pattern or evolution like
I think that pattern really depends on, as you said, on how big the perceived gap will be between
Mm,
home culture and host culture. If you said U.S. to China would be a gap that you and your family would perceive as one that's a big change, it's a
that's a
big
big one.
leap,
Yeah.
and you might hear my dog barking in the
I
background.
hear,
That's
I hear
awesome.
your dog's got something to say about it.
This is home office life. This is you get what you pay for, people. This is it. This is Magnus trying to intimidate somebody at the door, probably. Um, so I think it's about how large the perceived gap is. And when you said from US to Canada, you wouldn't anticipate a big gap. Now, where you to move from your current location is Detroit, right? And
Yep.
you're a Dallas boy. So where
Yep.
you to move from Texas or Michigan to, let's say, Quebec City, or maybe not even that far. Maybe let's just say Montreal,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
half of the population prefers to speak French, or
Right.
better yet, Quebecois. And would you still consider that to be a small change? I
Right.
don't know. Maybe
No, it's a
you've had
much
that
more.
before.
Now you got language, you've got other cultures. So, because I went to school in upstate New York in Albany, and we would drive up to Montreal when we wanted to have fun. We were 18 years old, 19 years old. We go up to Montreal, and we go to Saint Catherine, Rue Saint Catherine, and we go to Peel Pub, and we go to all these other things, and we'd have a great time because it felt like you were in an. Oh, I was gonna say it felt like you were in another country. It felt like
Yes,
you
you
were in
were.
another culture. It felt like you were in
Yes.
another culture. People were speaking French, and the drinking age is different, and it's 2 hours north or 3 hours north, so
Mm.
to your point, yes, absolutely. So I can't even say Canada, because Canada has very different areas, just like the US. I mean, I was a boy in Dallas, and I moved to New York, to White Plains in Westchester, New York. A very affluent, kind of cosmopolitan, city, north of New York City, and that was a huge culture change for me. So,
Mm.
and that's within the United States.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, Now I have a question for you also, Christian. Do you ever have cultural training for people that move within one country?
We have not done cultural training for a domestic move. We've done cultural trainings from English speaking Canada to English speaking US, actually from Alberta, from the province of Alberta, Canada, moving to Atlanta. Airline or aviation industry, and the employer was wise enough to set this up because Calgary ain't Alberta. And even though we speak the same language, there are important behavioral differences. Or as George Bernard Shaw, famous writer from Ireland, once said, and I hope I'm not butchering his quote, he said, the UK and the US, two countries separated by a common language. And that is probably true for most English speaking countries. My friend Brett in Chicago, he's an Aussie. He can talk to you all night about how his Australianness did not help him in the US, and how being an American in Australia will usually set you up for failure because you're not getting it. You're not getting the mates.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true for the UK, and the UK and Ireland, just separated by a channel, right, or a little bit of water. Within the UK, Scotland and England. So yes, there are cultural differences within one cultural mega group, so to say. However,
Mm-hmm.
no, I have yet to receive a cultural training request for somebody moving from Seattle to Atlanta, so to say.
Well,
But
so
we
I was
would.
on. Yeah,
Mm,
so I mean, this came up a few nights ago. I was on this app called House Party, which I've been
mm,
hanging out on a lot with my friends and my roommates from college, and my family and whatever. And it's like Zooming, but for like groups and whatever. Anyway, so we stay on it late at night. We have some beers, whatever. And so I'm on there with one of my roommates from college who lives in New York City with his wife, and and they work in finance, and they're very highbrow culture, and they collect art, and whatever, right? So they're those types of people. And they live in a 2,000 square foot studio apartment, right? And so anyway, so that's their life. And then my cousin from Louisiana hops into the house party, right? Basically Zoom bombs us, right? Hops in, and he's down in Louisiana, down in Nolens, right? And he starts coming on there with a culture called Kunas, which is
Mm.
a water, like where they live on the water. And his wife is a part of this Kunas culture, which is actually a people that came from Spain a long time ago, settled in the bayou, right? And we remember that um, uh, actually Spanish people inhabited that part, French people inhabited that part. So that's why New Orleans is so interesting, because there's so many
Hmm.
different cultures, right? You have Afro-Caribbean, you have all, black slave culture, you have all sorts of culture, right? Down there, and it's all mixing, and the food is that's why the food's so amazing, and the language is so crazy. But he's got this bayou kind of Creole kind of talk, and he comes on there and he's like, "Let me tell you about Boudreaux and Thibodeau down in the bayou," and he starts telling a joke about Boudreaux and Thibodeau down in the bayou, and my friends are just staring dumbstruck at the camera, and he gets off after half an hour, and they're like, "Ben, we have never met anyone like that. We don't know anything
Hmm.
about that."
Hmm.
And their takeaway was that those people probably don't like them very much. And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, you didn't say a word. How do they know if they don't like you?" Like, I was like, "If you
Hmm.
could drink a beer, and eat some shrimp and some gumbo and some whatever, they'll like you just fine." And so it's so interesting to me.
I think you just hinted at a great point. It is usually the the affluent people, the quote unquote woke folks,
The woke
who
folk.
who may look at themselves as being very open and embracing and tolerant to difference, yet they also live in their cultural bubble, and they also are blind to certain behavioral types that don't fit into their set of normal. And when I say
Right.
normal, I usually use air quotations.
Mm-hmm.
So, going back to your question from 10 minutes ago, is there a psychological pattern? The pattern tends to be, if people have not had an experience outside of their known zone, outside of their native culture, so to say, they tend to be rather ethnocentric. So me and world around it, right? So um, the way I am is the right way, and everything else revolves around me. And if it doesn't lean my way, then it's probably stupid and doesn't understand the way that we do things is the right way. So that's usually a starting point, is that ethnocentric point. And then as people get exposed to otherness, there's a degree to which they allow themselves to evolve. And there are stages like denying that there's actually a difference, and people would typically quote Maslow. I'm not sure, most of us have heard about Mr. Maslow's pyramid of human needs. On the
Mm-hmm.
bottom is food, shelter, safety. On the top is self-actualization. And haven't we agreed that this is true for all of humankind? Yes. So all humans want basically the same thing. So why waste time talking about culture, is usually a response that I get quite often. And it's like,
Mm.
yeah, sure. If that is what we agree on, that these are this is the
Right.
hierarchy of needs, but how we approach that pyramid, how we walk up that pyramid, that is different depending on where in the world you live. And that's what is culture. So we all
Yes.
want to go to the same peak, but the path to it is significantly different,
That's
right?
brilliant. That's
And so
brilliant.
there are stages of acknowledging that, and some people will choose to, often not it's not circumstance that makes them not progress any further. They usually, it's but by choice, that they say, yeah, I don't like this, this is foreign, this is uncomfortable, I don't want this, so I retreat and go back to my comfort, my known zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to us, and
I
that's
I
where
think
fear comes in, right? So if I'm afraid of the unknown, if I choose to allow that fear of the unknown to dictate my actions, then I might never get to know that unknown area. And sure, you might be happy for the rest of your life. I say, tackle the fear, do it anyway, and see what you get.
I love it. I think it's brilliant. I love how you described it and compared it to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think I think you should do a Hooferlu's hierarchy of cultural realization, where people start off on the bottom rung saying, "Hey, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, and I don't see color," stuff like
Yeah,
that, right? This is
I
what
love
people
that one.
say, right? I don't see color. Like, well, how did you manage to not run a red light on the way over here?
Hmm.
And then you get to the top where you see all the differences, you appreciate them for their uniqueness, and you are a well-rounded, worldly, likable person.
Well, you might be the person who doesn't see color and might still be likable because everybody that you surround yourself with thinks the same way. You never
That's right.
left your village in
Right.
the, I don't know, wherever. So
Yeah.
whether it's in the Poconos or it's in the at Irondeck Mountains, or if
Mm.
it's in the Hamptons, I don't care, right? So you might be in a whatever bubble you are in, you might still hold on to the worldview in that bubble and never change that. There's a German polymath philosopher of the, I want to say, 18th century. I should know this as a German, but I don't. Alexander von Humboldt, a famous German scientific great, who said something like, and I'm not going to quote him verbatim because it's probably going to be wrong anyway, but the gist of it is, the most dangerous worldview is the worldview of people who've never viewed the world.
Hmm.
So go view the world and then have a worldview, then go judge before. In other words, listen, read, observe, shut up, learn, and then maybe have an opinion, or then maybe pass judgment. But there's a reason we have two ears and two eyes and only one mouth, right?
Hmm. And only one brain for our
Yeah.
opinions.
if it works. Hey, we're getting close to the hour, and I totally forgot to ask you that, because we see this is what it is, rabbit holes after one after the other.
Mhm.
One question I still want to ask you though, because that's what I told people I'm going to ask you is, in the relo industry, how much is it common to your experience that somebody who is part of the transactional piece of moving household goods or moving whatever, blue trucks, um, how common is it that in your industry you have to be mindful of where your client is from, that it matters whether they're from the Bayou or from Montreal? Does it matter in your transaction whether they're from upstate New York City, the upper west side in New York, or whether they're
Right.
from Hickville?
Yeah. So, it's funny. It's one of those things. It's a matter of perspective, right? It depends on who you ask, right? Are you asking the transferee, the employee that you're moving, the customer? Are you asking the consumer, or are you asking the mover, right? So,
Mhm.
to the employee, I think that it would matter a lot, although they may not realize it. So, I'll tell you some of the misses, some of the things that can happen if they don't realize the
Right.
cultural nuances, right?
Hmm.
So, for instance, when we move, say we move a Japanese businessman, we come into their home, we need to remove our shoes. It's very important to them,
Hmm.
right? That you remove his shoes. It's
Hmm.
very disrespectful to
Hmm.
go into the home with your shoes still on.
True.
Um, a lot of movers will say, well, I don't want to slip on the floor, and I can't be taking my shoes off every time I come in and I come out. And that's a rub, that's a friction point for the moving industry, which is not an incredibly cultured set of labor. It's not an incredibly cultured labor pool, right? Let's be honest here, right? And so that's hard to raise that level of awareness. There are people also in our industry who, by their, not in our industry, but our customer base, who are just negotiators, just their culture, right? They negotiate everything. And you have to be prepared when you walk in. A lot of my salespeople who do consumer moves, who walk into people's homes on a day-to-day basis and try to convince them to pay us money to move their furniture, they get very frustrated with these types of people, because they're like, oh, I got one of these types, and they try to negotiate the rate on this, and no matter what I say, they're never happy. Well, that's their culture. Their culture is they negotiate everything down to the penny, and never make you feel good about it, in the
Mm.
process. And you have to detach your emotions from that, realize it's a cultural thing. Don't be insulted, but it's just their culture, and go into that with a strategy, knowing that this is what's going to happen. So I need to plan accordingly. Maybe I'll fluff up my price by 20% because I know that I'm going to spend, they're going to get me down 50%. I need to be able to land somewhere that's sustainable,
It sounds like the market scene in Life of Brian. I don't know. For those of you who haven't watched the movie, it's an old Monty Python classic. You should watch around Easter time. Is Monty Python's Life of Brian. There's a scene where they haggle in the market, and one vendor says, "What? You don't want to negotiate? What's wrong with you?" So, some cultures need to have that interaction. It's part of the rapport building, right? And it's not just here's my price and this is what you're going to get. So there needs to be a give and take. And only if you're showing that you're willing to bend a little or massage your offering in a certain way, doesn't mean that you're losing out on business. You might actually do more business by showing flexibility. Then you'll get the business.
And then I look at the cultures like work, like maybe it's not culture like in a geographical or anthropological sense, but there's like cultures within like engineers. Like engineers have different cultures than HR professionals.
Yes,
so if I'm moving
totally
an HR professional, empathy, soft skills are very important to them. If I'm moving an engineer, he's going to send me a 3-page spreadsheet of everything he has in his home that he weighed on his bathroom scale, and he's going to contest the weight that I came up with and my algorithm because he went through and actually weighed every single item and would like me to adjust my estimate by 7.2%. Thank you very much, and have it to him by close of business tomorrow for his approval, right? And it's like, and these are just the types of people that we deal with,
Exactly.
And then I have my clients, because I do a lot of corporate moving, right? And I move, technology companies, I move automotive manufacturers, I move people all over the world. And so I deal with their companies, I deal with relocation management companies, and I find that some companies have a culture of partnership and collaboration, and where they take shared responsibility for defects and faults and things that go sideways. And they say, we'd like to know what you're going to do better, but here's what we're going to do better. And we're going to partner on the solution. We want to make this employee, you broke a lamp. It's $100 lamp. You say you didn't break it. They say you did. You know what? We'll split it with you. I'm like, you know what? I can get behind that. Okay. That sounds like a partnership. Let's do that. And then there's other types that manage you like you're a cog on the wheel, and just beat you for pricing decreases every year, and everything is your fault, nothing's their fault, and they don't want to communicate back to their client and try to defend you. And it's interesting because what will happen is they try to command and control to get better output, but in actuality their service continues to decline because they don't have engagement with their partners. Right? So you can beat me all day long, but if I don't like the work I'm doing and I don't like our relationship, you're never going to get 110% out of me.
Now you said, and I want to contest that, but you know that better than me, but you said that in your industry, especially on the frontline service level, where your business meets the client, it's, as you said, not cultured people. That may or may not be true. I'm not a big fan of that label cultured, just because somebody is, let's say, makes their money with manual labor and doesn't have a college degree, and therefore loads.
Allow me the opportunity to amend that statement. I would like to amend that to culturally fluent or culturally diverse.
Nice. Good.
Because I think they all have their own culture, and they may or may not be educated on their own, but it's just I find not a lot of plurality.
No, and I didn't mean that to diss yours. I just meant to say that I think every member of society fulfills their role. So and they too have their culture, whether it's one that is fluent in other cultures or not. Now, here's my question though. This is where it becomes a challenge for an operation like yours. Knowing that you're dealing with different clientele with different behavioral preferences, is there a way for you to prep your frontline workers, the people that come in the blue truck, to prep them accordingly. Say, hey, this is the engineer nitpicker who weighed everything and labeled everything and will hold us accountable for the most little scratch. Or, and here's the HR person, be nice to them and coddle them as you leave. So is there a way you prep your folks?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. I think it's a real opportunity for our industry, right? For our industry, um, it's easier to do that, and it's more commonly done with the office staff, from what I've seen, right? So
Mm-hmm.
our move coordinators, even our sales estimators that go into the home, we put them through things like personality profiles, what we call it. We don't talk about culture as much as that's psychology, but we do
Mm-hmm.
talk about the types of buyers out there and the way that they look at things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about oftentimes in terms of empathy. We give them empathy tools, so no matter what types of person they are, we just basically empathize with them and kind of go along with it. We don't necessarily go as deep as understanding why they're that way as much as here's how you say yes to this person.
Yeah.
um, so there's a little more nuance probably to what you're talking about. Where I think we really struggle is with the movers that we put in the home,
Mm-hmm.
right? The drivers, the helpers and laborers, because that's a broader workforce. They don't come into the office. They don't have an email address. It's harder to say. The Culture Mastery published a 1, 2, 3 guide for movers. Click on this link below and let everybody know, let Tanya know that you've watched it by Friday at close of business. That would be really super. Thanks so much. First guy that does it gets a gift card. It's not that type of organizational culture with movers.
Mm.
There's also it's a more transient population of employee as well.
Right.
You have movers that are very good at what they do, but they might work for 3 different movie companies in the same city,
Yeah.
at the
Gotcha.
same time. So it's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
That's kind of my cop out response, but I do think there's a real opportunity to it. In fact, the Japanese, I just want to share this one point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Japanese mover out there named Nippon Express. There's a lot of Japanese movers, and they're all very excellent. You can actually Google Japanese movers on YouTube. But I'm going to shout out this company because I look up to what they do. They value the Japanese way and the Japanese culture so much that they will actually fly their movers from Japan to the United States to unload that shipment,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so important that they nail the culture aspect and nail that expectation, and that to them is the only way to do it.
Hmm.
And I just that is beyond the realm of what is cost effective, sustainable, possible in my world. But I love the fact that the standard is so high.
And they probably have clients who appreciate that and are willing to pay the price for that.
And that's another thing that's interesting is the client's willing to pay the ungodly sum of whatever it costs to fly 3 Japanese movers over to the United States and back to unload a shipment. But we in the US find it hard to charge, a few bucks more. And that tells me that we are not actually adding more value, but just asking for more money. Our customers don't see the value in why we're asking for more money, but they'll pay them God knows how much more money. So that to me, from a sales and business development standpoint, says, I got some work to do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. We do this. Obviously, I totally agree with you. There's culture and then there's personality, and the both are not mutually exclusive. So we got to look at both of these aspects. And yes, we with our clients, we also work on personality assessment, and we use a tool called Bank. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. I'll send you a link offline. BANK. It's a quick. I don't want to say quick and dirty, but it's much easier to apply and easier to understand and put into action than most other personality profiles out there.
Okay.
Might be an interesting tool for you guys to look at, which allows us to quickly assess how do people make decisions based on their values that they value most. It's a values-based personality assessment, cool tool, and has added a lot of value to our work, because we can tell people, okay, here's a culture that mandates or dictates how people behave, because that's the way they were brought up. But now here is a blueprint personality type, here's an action personality type, here's a nurturing personality type, here's a knowledge personality type. And the engineer you just described a minute ago, probably a knowledge blueprint guy who measured everything, who kept track of everything and keeps his own spreadsheet just to prove you wrong and make sure that he's right, because that's the value set he or she lives by, right? So and it would be smart to know, as you're interacting with your client, what personality profile are they, and how do I get them to say yes, or how do I get them to agree, and how do I as a service provider say the things that they need to hear in order to be
How
okay
are
with
we most likely to satisfy that person? Because in my world, we live in a world where we have to have a 92% client satisfaction rate or better.
it?
And the amount of business we get from our clients is directly proportionate to how much or better we are.
Yep.
And so trying to get that last 8% of people to give you a perfect score on an assessment, you have this asymptotic relationship where you can get close, but you can never like fully achieve perfection. And so grinding out that last few percentage points is kind of the name of the game to being truly world class in our business. So you have to get into the psychology of the personality. So it's great.
Well, we'll do a webinar. I'll do a webinar within the next couple of weeks on how to roll that out to organizations. So I'll send you a link, and those of you watching, stay tuned or subscribe to the newsletter or like us on the socials. You know how this works.
Yeah.
Watch for the update. There will be a webinar around our personality profiling tool that we use. We didn't invent it. We just use it. We like it, and we would like you to know about it. That's all.
Cool.
Ben, this was awesome. Thank you for making yourself available. Actually, this is the second time we talked. Was it this week? No, we talked last week, right? So we talked the second time within a week. So if you missed that one, I talked to Ben last week about other funny stuff. This was great. I love it.
This is great.
As soon as this Corona shit's over, we're gonna have adult beverage, not in Montreal, but somewhere else.
At least in Atlanta, maybe Detroit. But Christian, thank you so much for having me on. This show's great. I really appreciate you. I love the way you think and the ideas we got to unpack here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're out here. Talk to you later, folks. Leave comments, like us, post your ideas, prove us wrong. I want to see that. All right. Thanks. Culture Talk is out.